time now for Coming In Hot with Brent Wallace and former Ottawa Senator Jason York.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is a show number 2 of our 5-day extravaganza, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Everybody's winning, and I don't even mean the Florida Panthers right now. What a day for the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah. You know who's winning? That clever little play on words you used this afternoon, Wally. See that, Simmer? His little show headline there?
Well, I'm a little slow. I didn't get it. So yeah, I'd like to be that person that says, "Oh yeah." I'm excited to hear. I actually reviewed it and I didn't get anything.
So he's so nerdy. He loves little play on words, eh?
Okay.
Lead us to victory.
Lead us to victory. Okay. I like it.
Wally, Wally, listen. Well done. I like it.
I'm just shocked Yorkie got it.
I have my glasses on. I'm smart right now.
Yes. By the way, we have Carter Hutton lined up at the 2 p.m. hour. He played 3 seasons with Linus Ullmark in Buffalo. We'll get his thoughts on Ullmark and what Sens fans should expect to see away from the rink, if you will. And then shortly, I'm waiting for David Pagnotta to join the show. He is wrapping things up in Florida. He may very well be at the Elbow Room. I have no idea. It's been quite a day in South Florida to be celebrating the Cup. I would love to be there right now. This will be epic with the way these guys will celebrate around the beach.
Yeah, I think so. I think Yorkie, we're going to go back to almost Ovi. And when you got Matthew Tkachuk and led by like the legend, Keith Tkachuk, when you have a father that never won the Cup, now I know with St. Louis, he ended up grabbing it, but hey, they're just going to have an absolute blast. And what better place to be than South Florida? So I'm feeling kind of a rivalry between the Caps and the Blues and they're going to go hard. And the all-nighter to start it off, I think is excellent, Yorkie.
I've been just enjoying all the different tweets coming out of South Florida today. The best one I've seen so far, because everybody drives around in those big golf carts and you put people in the back. Somehow Keith Tkachuk got his hands on a big 9-seater and he's driving and he's taking the boys over to the bar. It is just fantastic. There's the good old Elbow Room right there. Saw the Cup as well in the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic. We're on the Atlantic side. This is it's so good. Yeah, none of these guys have slept. They're probably not going to sleep for 2 or 3 days straight. Man, still my favorite takeaway from the ceremony and watching is Paul Maurice holding up that cup, and he's got his eyes closed, and the whole team gathers around and they're watching him. He, Simmer, I don't know how well you know Mo. But yeah. I've told this story before. He coached me his very first year when he stepped out of playing, and I was a 18-year-old player in Windsor, and he was he helped change my career around. That's how good he is with people. He's so good at teaching, and it started at age 21. So I was legitimately so happy to see Paul Maurice raise that cup. Just a really, really good person.
No, he really is class guy. My first year in the Sioux, he's from the Sioux. I dated his ex-girlfriend, so he threatened me on the ice. So we got off to a bit of a slow start. That improved later. And he went right into, because of the eye injury, being an assistant coach with Tommy Webster and great friends with Adam Grace, Pete DeBoer. He was a coach in Toronto when I worked there. He was one of the guys. We talked the other day about Barry Trotz and Paul Maurice can't win in the playoffs. And there was a time where I really thought, guys, that Mo wasn't necessarily a great playoff coach. Well, he had last year. And I loved he was throwing big F-bombs, and who isn't cheering for a guy like that? I mean, it's incredible how long he's gone, Wally, and just an absolute class act. So it was really nice to see last night.
Nobody says a bad word about Paul Maurice ever.
No, and when you've gone around to so many, one of the things that he does, and I think a lot of people can learn from, your entries and exits in life, and his exits whenever he's left a job, whether it be Carolina a couple of times, Winnipeg, coming to Florida, even the circumstances with Joel Quenneville and Andrew Brunette, but he's just been a class act all the way, and I think a lot of people can learn from that.
100%. Yeah.
Quickly, because we're not going to spend a lot of time on the Cup final. Are you guys good with Game 7? Did you like Game 7? Did it live up to all the hype?
Yeah, I had a feeling. I just think it's so hard to win 4 straight, and I had a feeling that Florida was going to do it. But it was, man, they really. You know what though? This is what I'll say about the game. It is really hard to win the Stanley Cup when you just keep leaning on your star players. Like Edmonton fell into that trap again. They went to it, to me. They went to it too early, and they just played the shit out of McDavid. And they had nothing left in the third period. I was watching them. Not enough energy to chase down pucks, and you see, Ullmark was having a great game. I just felt that it's so easy, Simmer, to do this. You got McDavid, you got Draisaitl, you got Hyman. You look down the bench, but I just you cannot win the Stanley Cup, at least in my opinion, without using everybody, and that's what Florida did. And to me, that was the difference. And man, they bent, but they didn't break. But man, they play hard. They play so hard in their own zone. They make it so tough to get to the front of the net.
Yeah, and they showed the hits in the first period, York. You totally agree. And to that, it's a little bit like the NBA. You lean on your stars, and if you don't win, people be critical if you don't play them enough. But when you think about the Henrique line with Brown and some of the other guys, it did exactly become that. And unfortunately, I hate to say this because I'm so respectful of Skinner. That's a dud that you let in, unfortunately, to be the game-winning goal. So I felt like Edmonton, and maybe because I wasn't nervous as a huge fan, I kind of felt they were going to tie it, Wally. Like I felt pretty good about the way they were playing. It wasn't all of a sudden a lockdown, shut it down. But hey, credit to the Florida Panthers, and that's a wild way. And have to cheer for a guy like Bobrovsky, as he'll be right in the Hall of Fame mentions going forward after 400 wins, couple of Vezinas, and now a cup.
Oh yeah. I think he solidifies it with that playoff run.
Yeah.
He was right there in the Conn Smythe thing. And what do you guys think with Connor not coming on the ice? What do you guys?
What's he supposed to do?
I know, like, because it drags on so long. Like, if you're going to give it to the guy, like, just get it out of the way. Here you go, get the Conn Smythe now.
I have no issue. You can award it all you want. You don't need to. If it's not for the guys on the ice, if it's not for the winning team, then just don't award it. Like, why are you bringing it out? You already know Connor's going to win it. Don't bring it out. Just say Conn Smythe Trophy winners Connor McDavid and move on. Yeah. He doesn't want to come out and take the spotlight away. He's also in the room. I'm like, I've seen many guys in the room in tears. I wouldn't shock me. You've given everything you've had for 2.5 months or whatever. Yeah. So I just don't like the way they do that. If you're not the winning team,
he's so much like Gretzky as well, guys. I think he thinks about not Connor McDavid. He thinks about the game. If the game was in Edmonton, I think there's a slight chance he comes out. But I think he just realized that's the Florida Panthers moment. And Warren Z brought up this week, and I never thought of it until last night. I don't know what I was thinking with Giguère, and certainly back to Hextall as a kid. Should it just go to the winning team? Because I know for Connor McDavid, do you think he even cares that he won it yesterday? No. I guess down the road, it's talked about. But all I'd say is that he had to win it, but I had no issue whatsoever. The guy did everything he could for the game from a Gretzky standpoint of elevating the sport. And I don't think at the end of the day, anybody cares. And for him, like I said, he was the first one in line for the handshake. He waited for all of his guys. He did everything you'd expect from a captain. So no issue whatsoever.
Hey, how about Gustav Forsling sneaking in there for a bunch of MVP? I don't know if I looked down at the breakdown.
Yeah.
And he was on a lot of ballots. Like, he had himself quite a coming out party this playoffs. Forsling.
Well, then let's ask our guest about Gustav Forsling and how things went in, because I'm pretty sure he may have had a vote. I'll ask David Pagnotta from the fourth period and every other thing you do. I'm shocked that you're awake right now. So I just appreciate exhausted coming on. Yeah.
I just haven't gone to sleep, to be perfectly honest. It's just easier. It's just easier this way.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. Okay, so we talked about Connor McDavid, obviously getting the Conn Smythe. Was there any surprises like Gustav Forsling who got more votes? Did you get to vote?
Not this year. I voted last year for Conn Smythe. Usually it changes for the most part year to year, but not overly surprised. I mean, a lot of people were hyping up Forsling, and you guys just mentioned this was his coming out party from a national side of things with respect to just what he's capable of. And when your coach pumps your tires and says you're the best defenseman in the world for what you do, it's going to garner a lot of attention. I mean, I don't have any issue with McDavid winning Conn Smythe. He deserved it. It was ridiculous all playoffs long. And I don't really have a problem with the fact that he didn't come out either. So I think well-deserved. Bob, we saw him on a bit of a roller coaster as the playoffs expanded. And I mean, for me, Barkov might have been, probably number 2 on my ballot if I had one. just the way that he was able to shut down the opposition round after round, in addition to putting up numbers, to me was really, really impressive.
Have you seen any celebrations? Have you been to the elbow room this morning? Like, what have you done
Yes.
today?
Yes, I was there this morning. I assume it's still there. It's not too far away from where I'm staying. They're like catapulting the beer inside the cup itself and just like launching it into people on the street, smacking them right in the face. It's pretty cool. They're having a great time with it. Obviously, Keith Kachuk's loving every minute of it as well. I don't know if he's still there, but he was there earlier. They're just having a great time. They brought it to the beach. They Brady almost dropped it in the ocean. That was fun. Or sorry.
I was just about to wait. Yeah.
Everyone's having a good time. And I don't know if Brady's there right now with everybody, but he was certainly around, and he's keeping his distance. He's doing the respectful, responsible thing. But yeah, everybody's having an absolute blast. The party went on. I think it was till 3 a.m. in the locker room before they started to migrate to other parts of town.
So good. Okay, I want to get to the trade. You've been all over it, the Ullmark deal, for those wondering what we're talking about. The big question is, David, we can't discuss a contract extension until July 1st, but is there any way that and I know Elliot Friedman last night said he doesn't think that Ullmark will sign one till the end of the season. Do you believe there may be some early negotiations in place that we may hear of one being signed? I know he waived his no trade. So in order to come here, he had to do that. So which means he kind of may like the city. I know he talked to Alfie. So is there a chance that there's a contract extension verbally agreed to?
No, not to my knowledge. And I reached out to him. I reached out to his agent. And one of the guys with the Sens, and my understanding is no, there's no extension. They did have a preliminary discussion about what something may look like. But from the sounds of things, this was the one option that Linus was excited to go to, and wasn't prepared to kind of explore alternative options, at least not ones that were on his no trade list. So look, he was pretty motivated to come here, or to come to Ottawa, excuse me, and just kind of let's just ride this out, see how things kind of progress moving forward. Again, preliminary discussion, so at least there's a ballpark, an understanding on both sides of where each side is at, and that clearly didn't deter anybody from making this move on either side. So that's probably the positive I would look at it in terms of anything long term. But reaching out to people on both sides and the guys that are dealing with this. I would be very surprised unless something happens in the next few days. As of now, there's not going to be an extension in place.
Technically, though, you're not allowed by rules to have an extension until after July 1st, right?
To sign one, yeah. But you can agree, you can negotiate, you can do all that. Like Joseph Wall, he's agreed to his deal, which will be official July 1 in Toronto, for example. And there are a few others that are kind of in a very similar position. But yeah, it doesn't stop them from negotiating.
And to that, David, if you were representing Ullmark, would you not, based on where Ottawa's at realistically and going into a free agency year, would you not try to get a contract extension done if there is realistically Ottawa is game?
I take it from that perspective, and I also see it from the other side where it's, they're looking to do a lot of changes, and they're looking to modify this roster and propel them forward relatively quickly with some of the changes that Steve Staios and company want to do. So why don't we just take a step back? We're in a new environment. Let's get to know everybody. Let's see if we're comfortable. And then if the team is moving in the direction that they sold us on, then all right, then let's commit. So I understand that angle of it as well, just as much as, everything sounds great. Let's just commit now. I get both sides of the equation. But I think that the latter is the one where they're kind of leaning towards, where let's just sit back. We're comfortable coming here. Let's just see where the direction is. And can they make the changes that they claim that they're going to make? And if they do, awesome, beautiful. Let's compete for a playoff spot. Let's go for a run, and we'll expand this relationship and this marriage afterwards.
Are you hearing any other free agent talks regarding Ottawa and perhaps a right shot D? With Dylan DeMello is now off the board. Can you give us somebody the Sens are going to sign? We need something now.
I mean, they're going to look at all the kinds of options. You're not supposed to agree to a contract or talk to free agents until July 1, guys, and everybody follows the rules. So, not like last year, the year before, where 8 guys had deals in place at the draft. It's not going to happen this year. But there are certainly some options that are going to be explored from Ottawa's perspective on that front, and which is why also they're trying to create some space on that blue line, looking to move out some bodies on that back end to not just address the right side of their D, but also to add some additional scoring up front, which certainly sounds like something that Steve wants to do in adding. So I suspect that he will in some fashion add, whether it's, and this is the thing, like certain guys, Brent Pesce is going to generate and has generated a ton of interest, at least internally, excuse me, with a few teams. And those discussions will certainly become official, soon enough. But there's going to be a lot of players a lot of teams that are going to target this player on their back end, just as much as they're going to look again, as I said, to add another scorer to the lineup.
You think Ottawa's going to be looking for goal scorers? That's your.
As part of it, it sounds like they want to add somebody up front that can kind of solidify that top 6 offense.
Gotcha.
That's what it seems like. Now, whether that's through trade or free agency, I guess we got to wait and see. But it certainly sounds like they are very aggressive in exploring, kind of just combing everything and kind of putting a blanket across everything. Shore up the D. They got their goaltender. Add to their D and shift a couple of things on the blue line. Add someone up front to the top 6, and then look for somebody in that mid-6 as well. Maybe at the center position on the third line.
David, any thoughts after the Dadonov situation? I know it's not this regime, that they are going to play it cool and careful, both in an extension with Ullmark, if it's even there. Again, I don't think they did themselves any favors announcing this 15 minutes before puck drop last night. And also from a free agency standpoint of Green and Tanev and everything else, everybody tampers. But just, hey, we're not fooling around here, because I don't think it's going to happen again. But just a little thought in my mind.
No, it doesn't. I think everybody's communicating in the right way this time. Yeah. There are obviously ways around it and all that fun stuff, as you know. But no, it sounds like they want to get they've already gotten a head start. In terms of augmenting the lineup a little bit for next season. This was a priority for them. Was getting that goaltender. Just not only getting the goaltender, but also doing it in a fashion where, okay, they're paying a little extra, but they move out Korpisalo. And from that perspective, if things go south relationship-wise with Ullmark, at least you've got that extra cap space to now play with next summer to stabilize your goaltending position, which is not. I mean, that's backup plan. That's the backup plan. I don't want to throw that. The goal is to keep this going long term. But if what hits the fan, then at least you've got some coverage there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, look, they're from a free agent perspective, they're throwing out, the idea to a lot of different guys of, hey, would you want to come here? This is our plan. This is what we're looking at. And if that's a consideration for you, then let's have the official discussions when we can officially have them. But I've bent a rule every now and again in my time. I'm sure everybody here has. So
I've watched you in Vegas. You've broken many a rule.
No. I've bent as many as I'm that, the airbender. Yeah, Vegas bender. Well, that actually sounds worse.
Are you? So I want to go to the draft. I know I just have you for a couple more minutes. Are you excited to see the draft at the Sphere? They've released a couple of photos. It looks like it would be just absolutely amazing. I am pretty excited to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, they blew their budget pretty early on the tech for this thing. Like, they're over budget by a solid amount, which is, from an NHL perspective, they're not overly happy about it, but they should be, because this is like, they beat out NFL Honors, wanted to have their show and be the first sports related event at the Sphere, and the NHL beat them out. So like, this is a big deal for the league. This is a big deal for, promoting the game beyond how it's already been promoted and beyond all the numbers, especially in the United States, with everything going well with TNT and ESPN and all the ratings. They really wanted to blow this out of the water. So I am looking forward to it. It's a smaller type of venue compared to obviously like an arena. where you've got all the different tables in place. I think the media riser is completely different, a lot smaller for this one. But I am looking forward to it. There's going to be an added sense of entertainment that has to come with this event, not just because it's the last one of this style, but also because it's in Vegas and it's at the Sphere. They're supposed to do some really cool graphics inside, outside, as well. I don't know the full details of it, but Steve Mayer and the crew over there, they've been pumping the tires on this one for a long time, and I can't wait to see how the finished product looks. I'm
excited to see it. David, we appreciate your time. Nice work on all the stuff you've been doing, A, through the playoffs, and B, just on the Ullmark and that stuff. So I appreciate you being awake long enough to chat with us.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really look forward to hydrating properly. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. See you at the elbow room.
Yep.
See you, Dave.
See you, buddy.
Get a little biosteel in that body, eh? Electrolytes.
Body armor. That's the new one with the league, right? You can only talk body armor.
Body armor.
Yeah. Anyway, there goes David Pagnotta from the NHL Network and from the fourth period. Fantastic guy. I've seen a lot of things. Award shows together. Good band.
Did we find out who's hosting the NHL Awards show yet?
I don't know. I didn't look.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't even talked about. How about probably a big reason why Florida ended up winning that game last night? The mojo that big Roberto Luongo. Did you see the intensity he was beaten with last night?
Yeah. But hold on. Did you see the guy that works in game day operations or whatever telling him when to beat the drum? Did you notice that guy in the suit? And I was like, okay, I think Roberto is well aware of how to do this. Anyway,
I think they didn't obviously. They didn't give Jack the memo. No, I didn't see the tweet.
I also thought it was a curse that Aladdis Morissette was coming in. I thought for sure Edmonton was going to win. You're bringing in a Canadian to end up doing the national anthem. Didn't work out, but I agree. Roberto, passionate. And was he on the short list? And I know it's not the same as playing Yorkie, but he's on the short list of people that wanted to win it, or you wanted to see win a Stanley Cup when they played, right? He's so darn popular. So it feels like, and I remember Ole Kolzig with Washington, I was kind of surprised. It almost felt like he was playing, and I think for Roberto, seeing his reaction last night was, hey, I'm very much a part of this. And I think Keith Tkachuk's the same thing.
Yeah. How many advisors to the GM does Florida have, by the way? They got Luongo in there. They got Brian McCabe in there. That box is just lit with former players. And what are you? I'm the advisor to the general manager.
Well, they got a ton. And one of the beautiful parts, I mean, Rick Dudley has so much more hair than he did when he was in the IHL. I gotta get in touch with this guy.
I love Rick Dudley. He's such
next week you show up on the show with a full head of hair.
I actually have one. I have a wig. That's a good call, actually. I'll give it a go. But Duds is a character of characters, and just fun to see some of those people hoisted the cup last night with Billy.
People don't know Rick Dudley has a country album.
Yeah, I know that. He's
okay.
He's a country artist.
When he played in Buffalo. Quickly, as we wait for Carter Hutton to join the show, which will just be up shortly, I just want to take care of some business, and then we'll get back to Linus Ullmark, because there's a few more things we need to discuss, obviously. All right. This show, as always, presented by Betway. Go to betway.ca. No more lock of the day for hockey, but we will look to change that maybe for golf for Yorkie, who can't get enough of the links. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 plus. Go to betway.ca. And also our good friends at Bonnechere Excavating Incorporated. If you're looking to spruce up the driveway, get some curb appeal going, BEI can help you with those things. Aggregate and topsoil sales, plus BEI also has equipment rentals. Give them a call for all your landscape needs at 613-432-1120, or you could visit them at BonnechereExcavating.com. BEI, helping to shape the Ottawa Valley. And please slow down in the construction zones this summer. All right. So there's a lot of talk about Linus Ullmark and the contract extension. I even think if you don't have that extension done, and let's just say he leaves next year, I still think you win the deal, basically because you were able to move off of Jonas Korpisalo. Instead of paying 10.3 or whatever it was to buy him out, it cost you $4 million. Okay, Simmer, you were kind of. I'm just going to lead you into this. I know you were going to get into this. Yeah. So if I put myself in Linus Ullmark's shoes,
And I did a little study, a little case. I looked around the NHL at teams that need goaltenders. That's not a long list of teams. People would be surprised. Go through every team and say, do they got them, need them? There's maybe 3 or 4 teams. So if I'll just put it in Ullmark's. If I'm in Ullmark's position and Ottawa comes to me and they offer me some security and a deal, I don't know why I wouldn't take that, because there's so much unknowns of a new situation. What could happen this year? All of a sudden, let's just say, I'll play devil's advocate here. You go into a season and it doesn't go the way that you hoped it would. All of a sudden, you go from making, I don't know, let's just call it 4 times 6, 4.7, to maybe you're signing a 1 or 2 year deal. So people are saying it's a lot. I disagree. People are saying, I'll wait and see. I think if he's offering something, he is taking that all day long, because you would be crazy. You'd be the goalie market's different. It's different. You would be crazy not to take it, but that's just me.
Absolutely. And I'll go back to, and it's different circumstance. I said this with Josh Norris guy when he had the shoulder injury. I said, if I'm Craig Oster, I'm locking this guy up all day long because I got to protect him. In the case of Linus Ullmark, a few things here. He hasn't made a ton of cash relative to what NHL players make. If money's on the table right now, Ottawa's situation is high pressure. I get a bit of a weird vibe with Brady Tkachuk. I think there's a ton of pressure on the business side. The market wants to see it, the player. And also from that standpoint, he has a young family, big family guy. Ottawa's a great place to raise kids. And I don't care about this. I have some fun with the whole Swedish Ottawa thing. I'm bringing my family up and I'm locking in. I'm locking in for the next 6 years that I'm going to be here, because the other chance is, Wally, if it goes south, I'm getting flipped at the trade deadline. No, I am signing a contract extension in a heartbeat. I am not fooling around with this at all, because people will revert right back to in the industry. And his numbers in Buffalo, Wally, were good. If he has a tough year in Ottawa, they'll be like, oh, look at that. And this is the other part you got to be very careful of. I think Korpisalo goes to Boston with no pressure, playing behind Swayman, and Bob Essenza does great work. I think Korpisalo has a hell of a year within the division. So all of a sudden, we had the whole Talbot situation last year of how we look at him versus Korpisalo. Oh, yeah, contract done ASAP. And I'll say this. I really hope that the Ottawa Senators are just being careful and cautious and not upsetting the league, but having something in place.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Wally, with, I know we're going to have some numbers up here. I like the fact that Ullmark has played in high pressure goaltender cities. Buffalo, have you ever listened to Buffalo sports radio? They are not kind to their goaltenders. Boston, too,
we were going in there for the finals, for the playoffs in '98, Yorkie. I thought we were going to war, like a civil war.
Right.
Vancouver and Buffalo were my 2 biggest shockers. Like, it was violent what you have to go through as a player playing there, not to mention having to live in a city like that.
So for Korpisalo, to your point, he'll be the backup, so it won't be as much pressure. But starting goaltender playing in the city of Boston, I played there. That is a extremely difficult city to play in if you've got rabbit ears. So I like the fact that Ullmark's a seasoned guy that has played in tough markets. It's going to make his transition to Ottawa that much easier. And the other thing, don't kid yourself. Guys are super, ultra, hyper competitive. He is ticked off that Boston didn't maybe give him a little bit more of a chance in the playoffs. They went to Swayman. Swayman played incredible, absolutely incredible. He's probably sitting there like, oh, hey, I won the Vezina Trophy here. I'm not even a thought anymore. So he is going to be an extremely motivated player to play in the division. And players love to do this, Simmer. I know I did it when I got traded. You love to shove it up the team's ass that you know, they traded you. You love to do it. So very motivated.
No, you're only human. I go back to Ben Bishop, how ridiculous that was. And he was more probably shocked that, first of all, it wasn't even a controversy on the trade. And to your point, Wally, I disagree on every level. If this player, and it doesn't matter, it was a previous regime, that was a 7th pick overall for DeBrincat. You turned it into 25. All of a sudden, you get a 2nd round pick at the trade deadline. Here's the other part. They have the opportunity, unfortunately, here in Ottawa for this to be a very chaotic year. And if this thing goes south with no Ullmark under contract, all of the Brady Tkachuk talk, and when you add the layers to that, this could be a snowball that all of a sudden, hey, to me, this is not a successful trade unless they get a contract extension before the season starts. Because in a normal circumstance for Ottawa, it's just one more reason. Well, now Brady's not happy. And I don't like that. And we can talk about that more down the road, Wally. But I just said last week, I don't like guys coming into Ottawa on 1-year contracts. I'm not going to look past that. And the fact he got rid of Korpisalo, okay. but it's still deteriorating assets and an asset that could disappear. And it's one more thing you don't want to talk about during the whole year. Get him locked up, get him in the mindset he's going to be part of the solution here in Ottawa.
Okay, so let me put
I
it
think
to
it
this
happens.
way.
I think he signs this summer.
Yeah.
Okay, but even like going into next year for the 24-25 season, do you not consider it a win to have Linus Ullmark in goal as opposed to Jonas Korpisalo for this team?
Oh, absolutely. But I'll also say this. I've got a guy that's showcasing himself. And if he's made the calculated decision, Yorkie, not to sign, and he comes in and plays lights out, well, he's got me bent over on a contract. Now, if it goes south and you have to end up flipping him out, Wally, no, I don't. Ottawa's not stable enough. They need to get him signed. Are they better for the season next year? Absolutely. But I still have in the back of my mind the Talbot Korpisalo situation, and Ottawa's got a lot to do here. So I think the instability of the situation, and I agree, but I still think, okay, great. You bring him in next year for 1 year. What if he just decides he doesn't want to sign here and he's very successful? Or if it goes south, I think it's way too much risk for where Ottawa's at right now.
Well,
The one thing I'll say before we bring in Carter.
Yeah,
they did get out of the 4 years with Korpisalo, which is
for sure
major home run, and you're not locked in. So let's get Carter's thoughts. He actually played with Ullmark, right, Wally?
Yeah,
3 seasons in Buffalo. In fact,
here we go.
As I bring in Carter, it was goalie coach Andrew Allen from nearby Van Cleek Hill that said Carter Hutton was the perfect goalie partner for Linus Ullmark in Buffalo. Welcome to the show, sir.
He was a good partner. Andrew Allen was a great goalie coach, and Linus, you guys got a good goalie. Don't get me wrong. I played with a lot of goalies, and I've been around the game a long time. He was one of the most talented goalies I've ever been with. So in that factor, he is good, and he's shown it. So I'm excited for him.
Well, then what's wrong with him?
You know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with them, right? And you guys know how it works, right? It's always a numbers game. There's only so much money dedicated to goaltending in the situation, the cap era. And I think it's one of those ones where they just see more growth in Swayman, I think potential. But I think for Ullmark, this is a great trade for him, to keep growing. He's 30 years old and he's got a lot of good hockey left in him, in my opinion.
Carter, I'm going to ask you the big question right away. Knowing Ullmark the way you know him, because you guys know each other, you hang out. What are the chances he signs an extension this summer? And I know it's a guess, but what do you think?
Honestly, I think it's good once he gets there and gets settled, right? This is a guy who I tread gently on how I speak of people. There's guys that prioritize themselves and their hockey career. And then there's guys like Linus, who is a family man first. He prioritizes his wife and his kids. And I think during that trade, potential trade talk, he didn't want to uproot his kids and his family and his life. He had kind of settled in Boston and things were good. So now him coming to Ottawa, he shows he wants to be there. He doesn't want to be in the, the spotlight of New York City or LA. We talked about him getting traded there, or even Toronto for that matter, where I think once he gets settled in Ottawa and his family settles in and things go well, which I assume they will in Ottawa, he's going to love it there. And I honestly feel like it's a great potential because he prioritizes that. And something that I went through too, like when I played in Nashville early in my career, my wife and I were just dating at the time and we loved it. We had no commitments. We were going out. We were at Tootsie's. We were doing the whole thing where then all of a sudden you have kids, right? And you're like, do I want to be in this major hub? Do I want to be in New York City? Do I want to deal with all this stuff? And we went to Buffalo and that was a good fit for us. Obviously hockey wise, it didn't help my career by any means, but in the sense of, what's more important to you. And I think Linus prioritizes that. And I think this is going to be a great fit for him.
Carter, everybody talks about his numbers in Boston, but you go back to Buffalo, and I thought when they signed him, I'm a bit surprised, but how good was he for a not very good Buffalo team? Because certainly the numbers in his evolution to free agency were excellent.
Yeah, his numbers were great, and mine weren't good. So you could do that comparison too, in the sense of how good he was on a team that wasn't doing good, right? Where I came from St. Louis, where it was much more structured, predictable hockey, and I flourished in that. When all of a sudden I got to Buffalo, and the chances, there was high-end chances, and he managed it well every situation. I feel for Linus, and you look at these guys now, you look at Jack Eichel. Now last night you look at Sam Reinhart, Kyle Okposo, Evan Rodriguez, all these guys that left Buffalo, where I feel like the way they structured their team and culture wasn't great, right? The young guys got the keys to the castle right away, and I think Linus was a product of that. He had a long leash. He got away with, not that he was a bad person, maybe misunderstood in the sense of goaltending, but imagine being like anointed the guy, but never actually having to earn it, right? So I feel like like you touched on when I first joined with Andrew Allen, me being, I came from Shea Weber and Pekka Rinne and Mike Fisher and the Chicago Blackhawks system, where this is the way things run, right? Like, you're a young guy, you have to earn it. You have to go through the process, where I think Linus getting out of Buffalo, going to Boston, where there was more culture, more development, they had the leadership, really helped him mature off the rink. He had the talent. He just needed to put the other pieces together. And I feel like that's why he's been such a great goalie. And they obviously had to make a move. I'm sure this is a decision the Boston Bruins doesn't love to have to do, get rid of a guy like Linus Ullmark.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's he like personality-wise, and how does he fit in the room? What's he like on a game day? Give us the personality of Linus Ullmark.
Honestly, very laid back. He's a guy, he talks even more than I do. So he's definitely one of those guys that's very approachable. And I think, like, through the media, he'll, remember people's names, and he's very, you can approach him in any sense. And I think as a teammate, he's grown, he's a leader. He's definitely not a guy who's going to come up and tell you when you're doing something wrong and be hard on you and be one of those guys. But he's a guy that's going to fit in well in this locker room, especially with some younger guys that need that. And I also think just his demeanor of how he carries himself day to day, his work habits, the way he approaches games is going to help this team, right? He's going to be that backbone to solidify it, where when I look at the Ottawa Senators and I look at what they've kind of struggled with over the last few seasons, kind of similar to what I see with the New Jersey Devils going to get Jacob Markstrom. You're kind of bringing in a guy who has that veteran presence and that ability to help you. It just makes life easier when you're not second guessing what you're getting in net, right? And I've been the guy that struggled. I've seen other guys struggle. It's hard, right? When you're looking over your shoulder, you watch the Edmonton Oilers deal with it in the playoffs, where when Skinner was struggling a little bit, their team psyche is a little bit off. Where I think with Linus, how open he is and how honest he is really going to help this Ottawa Senators team.
Hey, Carter, I always look at certain markets, especially for goaltenders that are really tough. Like there's ego play in Arizona, or now Utah or Seattle, some of these places where people don't really, it's not hockey, but he's played in Buffalo, he's played in Boston. Ottawa's a traditionally tough market on goaltenders. Is that experience, you think there's something to that, and is that going to help?
Yeah, I honestly think there is something to do with that. You look at like Bobrovsky last night, he takes a day off to try to reset himself and get back in there. And you can't learn that without experience. Sometimes less is more too, right? And for me, these bigger markets, Canadian markets, there's a lot. I always think of when I broke in, I came in, really my first 3 years was with Nashville. And it was like the Preds had a party at the game, and it was like the Preds won, the Preds lost, nobody cares, right? We just have fun. Where I couldn't imagine when the 1 year Pekka got hurt, I played 40 games. If I was in a market like Ottawa and I had to open my newspaper every day, or it was coming at me in every which way. So the ability to gain experience and learn to compartmentalize that side of the game while you have a wife, while you have kids, while you have contract negotiation is tricky, right? But that's what comes with pro hockey. And I think especially in net, the experience of what Linus has dealt with last year with Swayman and, kind of losing that job in the playoffs and splitting time and dealing with trade talks is just going to make him grow off the rink and know how to compartmentalize those parts of his game.
Hey,
how nice is it, Carter, come in full? Oh, sorry. I was going to say, how nice is it come in full circle to have Forsberg, who he actually grew up with, as your partner?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty great, right? It's always good to have a guy. And again, Forsberg is another guy who's dealt with, he's bounced around a little bit until he kind of found this home in Ottawa. So for me, you're going to have two guys that aren't there trying to leapfrog each other. They're both at a point where they're secure goalies. And I think Linus is a guy of that. Like, I think everyone deals with that it's human nature to want to be the guy, or to be surrounded by people that want you to do well. Your mom, your dad, your agent. And then all of a sudden you start to think, well, if this guy gets hurt, I get a better chance. Where when you learn to get away from those thoughts and just focus on being a good teammate, and you're in that competition with yourself, right? Of course you're competing for ice time, but if I don't take care of my own business, I'm never going to play anyway. So I think both these guys are going to be in a great state of mind. And the fact of the matter is, nowadays, you look at how many teams you end up playing 3, 4, 5 goalies throughout a season. You need that depth, and you need that, internal motivation to help this team get over the top.
Who has the rights to the goalie hug? Is it Swayman or Ullmark? Who is it?
I don't know.
Does that travel?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, it might be. Linus is a pretty big dude. He used to call me Big Bear. I was like, well, if I'm Big Bear, then what the heck are you? You're Grizzly, right? And I guess we didn't win enough in Buffalo to do all those hugs. But yeah, that's about the best you'd get from me.
So there's a couple of questions. You brought up about having 3 goalies play or whatever it is. He hasn't played more than 49 games in a season. Does that matter when we're looking at his stats?
No, I think at times playing more almost gets easier, right? Especially with experience, you learn how to stay in that rhythm. I would find that more valuable, truthfully, like a guy that can play on limited starts and limited rest. That's where it's the art of goaltending, right? When you're not in that flow and rhythm. And for the most part, again, you're getting a guy that's in a sweet spot of age, in my opinion, right? He's kind of dialed in the NHL pro season. He's dialed in his body. He knows what it takes, the gruel of an NHL season. So I feel like there's a lot of benefit in that sense. So, but at the same time, you have Forsberg too, who's played a lot of great hockey too. So I think you have that happy medium, and it's really hard to come by guys nowadays that play 60, 65 games. And for a team that when you want to get in the playoffs, you want to make sure he's ready for that grind in the playoffs as well.
So, interesting point. You said Forsberg has played a lot of great hockey. Last year he didn't. There's been a lot of goalies, same with Korpisalo, come through here who have had good careers elsewhere. It suddenly doesn't look very good. What does Linus Ullmark like? Is it going to matter to him if he starts getting lit up? Because this is a struggling defensive team, as you know, Carter. So, I guess what's his mindset of coming to an Ottawa team?
I think for him, controlling the controllables, right? Again, you talk about you can go out and, maybe in Boston he had a bit more predictable hockey, but this guy's not very far removed from playing for the Buffalo Sabres where there wasn't a lot of predictable hockey, right? And you have to just be able to be yourself in whatever situation you're in, right? And I think, again, this falls back on experience and maturity and things that Linus have dealt with. So for him, but I also think that he has the skill set to be a lot better than what you guys have had so far. Nothing against Korpisalo. He's dealt with a lot. He's played a lot of good hockey. He's earned, and to get away from that contract, that kind of came in early. I heard you guys talking about that. That's a big thing, right? I think Linus is really he bets on himself too, right? This is a guy who's been through arbitration. He's been on 1-year deals. He's back against the wall. And I think this is another thing that he's dealt with this before. So I really think he's going to be able to flourish in it.
Hey, Carter, I don't know how much you watched the Senators last year. I'm sure you were following Korpisalo. What do you think went wrong for him? Like, how do you fall that far? And like you saw the stat, Ottawa last year 22 times gave up a goal on the first or second shot. Like, it was crazy. Like, what do you think happened to him?
It's kind of like I don't want to put him in that category, but like the Jack Campbell signing, right? And things go south. There's a little bit of like decompression that happens, in my opinion. And I feel like something I've dealt with where you grind for so long to try to get a contract, right? To try to get, and not that it's all about money, but like money is a big factor as being a professional athlete. And he finally gets that big contract. He's been traded a bunch. And then you almost like let off the gas a little bit. Not that he doesn't care. And I think Korpisalo is going to benefit from going to Boston. But the fact of the matter is then all of a sudden now you've got the contract. There's no pressure. You almost like decompress a bit. And I think you let off the gas. And I think that was just a product of it. Then it starts to snowball on you. Then all of a sudden it's like, maybe I didn't do as much as I used to do. It's not, the old saying about getting up early, but you have silk sheets, right, to go for a jog, the boxer. It's kind of the same factor, but as a goalie, your room for margin your error is just so small, right? It's like you're off a little bit, your team's not going to win. So I feel like it's a bit of that. And on top of a team that struggled and gave up a lot of good chances where I think everyone sitting here today last year would have predicted the Senators would have had a better season. And it obviously didn't happen. And goaltending was a big problem.
Carter, as it relates to the playoffs, I got to get your opinion on the evolution of Mr. Skinner over the last 2 months. And just mentally, how much did you appreciate the way he evolved and handled the pressure pretty much up to Game 7?
Yeah, it's very impressive. And for me, again, I fall back on that a lot because I just think my growth as an athlete, like where I went, and it wasn't necessarily like you don't lose talent overnight, right? Like a Mitch Korn goalie coach I had in Nashville used to always say that to me. If you have a bad game, it's not like you lost that talent overnight. It's between your ears, right? And I think for Stuart Skinner, dealing with what he's dealt with, last playoff run, this year, the Jack Campbell saga, the losing streak, the winning streaks, late in the year, he struggled at times too. So I think for him, just to have those experiences to draw upon made him grow as a person, mentally. And then the same thing, he was in a tough situation, right? He was always kind of the one that, in Edmonton, was he good enough? Was he going to be able to get it done? And I think he did a great job, obviously, extending that series and getting to where, giving up 2 in the final game. Necessarily, I think we need to save on that Reinhart one if you want to win a Stanley Cup. But at the same time, he did a pretty great job to get his team there.
Quickly, Vladimir Tarasenko, who you played with in St. Louis. Also, people don't know you enjoy a Stanley Cup ring. I don't know how often you get to take it out and wear it, but I don't know what your relationship was with like Tarasenko. Your thoughts on seeing him win his second last night?
I had a really great relationship with Vladimir. he was a guy, I think, in St. Louis, without our leadership group of, we had, Alex Pietrangelo was the captain, but I would say Alex Steen, who's going to be the GM, was pretty much our captain on and off the rink. Stasny, Bouwmeester. We had a lot of guys that kept him in line. And he is a guy that I try to tread gently on this stuff because it's tricky, right? I'm on this other side now where these are guys I played with. Vladdy liked things his way and he demanded it his way and he wanted to have it his way and he's earned the right to do that. So seeing him again mature into a person that
Oh boy, he's just getting to the good stuff.
Right? He just cut out the wrong time.
That's the power of Tarasenko's agent right there. He didn't like the vibe where that was headed.
Oh, he shut him down. Shut him right down. Warning.
Why are all
warning.
goalies? Why are all the goalies so well spoken, Wally? Like that? I don't know how if you've seen this. What a guess that guy is.
It's funny you say that.
Oh, yeah.
Back in when Ron Tugnutt played for the Sens, I'm pretty sure it was Ron. We discussed how there were so many goalies who were broadcasters because they saw the game from the entire time on the ice. They just saw the whole thing. Anyway,
goalies and D-men. To be specific.
Well, no, mostly goalies, not the D-men. No.
D-men and goalies.
Yeah.
He might be back here. We'll just hang on if we get him back for this.
What a beauty! What a beauty! I love it. Yeah, he's got. I agree, Simmer. He's got some good takes on the game.
And the thoughts and the insight. And anybody that knows the name Mitch Korn, you can say, did Mitch make the goalies or did Dominic Hasek make Mitch? But okay, he's had a nice ride to say the least. And for the guys that have bounced around the White Yorkie, and I know you played for different places, that's kind of one of the cool things. I know for Chris Phillips or even Alfie to some extent, Chris Neal, that's kind of cool what you do. But man, the experiences that Carter Hutton or yourself get from playing with different players, different coaches, different cities, going through the whole experience, it gives you so many different angles on how a guy like Ullmark feels coming to Ottawa.
Yeah, you just meet so many people, and I actually did in Nashville. We had Mitchie Korn was our goalie coach there, Simmer. I think shortest goalie coach in the history of the NHL. What's Mitchie go about 5'5" maybe?
Oh, and he doesn't even look, and he doesn't look the part either, right? Like you just can't even believe that this is possible. Hey,
he's so
what's
good.
the
He's
Buffalo
such a
goalie
good guy,
coach
though.
again? Jim Corsi?
Jim, is he still around? Jim, they came up with
Well,
the Corsi, but yeah, Jimbo's not much bigger for sure.
Those two are
but Mitchie Korn,
Yeah.
he was there with Hasek. He loves to tell the Hasek stories.
Oh yeah,
What a good man. Love Mitch.
Carter, do we have you back? I got a question. Oh, maybe not.
Struggling.
Okay, let me know.
The Wi-Fi is down.
Yeah.
Because Yorkie, he was coached by someone you're very good friends with when he was at UMass. I want to ask him about it.
Who?
Former Ottawa Senator.
At UMass. You've got me here. You got me. Who is it? I don't know.
Sean McEachran.
Oh, well, he wasn't the head coach. Mac wasn't the head coach.
No, I said he was coached by him. I didn't say.
Are we talking UMass Amherst? Is that where he played?
I want to say it was Lowell.
No.
Okay, Lowell. Yeah, Lowell is okay. Yeah. And I'll go. Well, I'm not going to even go trivia on it. The other famous goaltender that came from UMass Lowell is Dwayne Rollison.
Rolly the goalie.
Yeah, Craig McTavish. UMass Amherst gets most of the love with McCarr and Greg Carville, and I think Jonathan Quick. A few more boys come out of there. They've actually developed a pretty nice program.
Carvey's done an amazing job.
Yeah.
He's look what we did with Cale McCarr, pulled McCarr out of the AJHL, and they really do a nice job of developing players there at UMass Amherst.
Yeah, also refreshing. First of all, the growth, Yorkie, of college hockey in the United States is incredible, Wally. But it's also nice to see where it's diversified, right? Back in the day, it was all BU, it was all BC. Remember Tim Army, my buddy, when he was at Providence, would go in and say, as soon as a kid said, I want to play in the Bean Pot, which of course is those two along with Northeastern and Harvard, you just leave. He was with Providence College. But the evolution of Quinnipiac, and you go up and down, man, U.S. college hockey is firing on all cylinders right now. And we're just seeing more and more players come out of that.
Well, now you're seeing more teams being added, right? They're now starting to go down south and now out west. It'll be huge. Yeah.
Well, just having my two boys right now, my one son Jack's at Western, my other son Matthew is at Elmira College, Division III. But having to balance hockey, school, it just makes you so much more of a well-rounded person. And you can tell, I'm sure, Simmer, when you guys interviewed guys, when you talk to a college kid and you talk to a junior kid, there's a huge difference. The junior kid, most junior kids are playing video games. College kids are having to balance life because my son went to the OHL, and the OHL, everything is done. Everything's done for you, and that's not good because you don't figure things out.
No, I don't want Mark Gowdy or anybody on the CHL on line one. But I turned pro Jimmy Rivnak, who had graduated from Merrimack College, and it was night and day. I didn't know anything. It was actually kind of embarrassing of how are we going to get the phone turned on, and who do we order cable from? And in Washington, D.C., actually went and rented furniture. Here it is, 99 cents for this desk for the year. The experience, the evolution, actually dating properly, hanging around your peer group, not just being around the hockey group or living with a family, it's night or day. And let's leave that alone.
Yeah, there we go. It's true though. All right, listen. Hey,
but there's just no emphasis.
It is what it is.
The education side, as opposed to you have to be first and foremost.
Some teams. Let's rephrase it. Some teams there are. Some teams. My son played in Kitchener. They do a really nice job there. Peterborough as well does a nice job. Great
67s do a great job too. Well, it's changed. I'll say this, and this is the pressure they had. I mean, it goes back even to changing the Lindros rule when you couldn't trade a first round pick. He was going to go to Michigan, but the other part, they realized finally we need these education packages because too many guys are going to college. What's also happening now, a couple things within the hockey industry. First of all, as an American going to U.S. school, it's harder and harder for Canadians. Forget about coaching in the United States unless you went to college. And I think the other trend, unfortunately, Yorkie, in the United States, if you didn't play college hockey, you're probably not getting on TV either, unless you're a Hall of Fame hockey player. They have as they should. And that's why I'm excited. Forget about the summer best on best or whatever we have coming. The next Olympics for the United States, Wally, will be ginormous to grow the game because there's so many great players now in the league.
Okay, hold on.
We got Carter back. We got Carter back.
Yeah. Back by popular demand.
Back.
Nice.
So I'm sitting here. Oh man, I'm in my truck.
Simmer thought Tarasenko's agent had shut down your technology.
I don't got a Huawei phone. My phone overheat. It's 32 out today, so I had an appointment. I came out. I joined the call. I jumped on. I brought my headphones. I was prepared, and then my phone shut down. It was too hot. That's rare in Thunder Bay, Ontario, for that to happen.
Wow.
Oh, that's very rare.
And so you were just at the good part of the story, and then so we just need to know how the story ends with Tarasenko.
Yeah, so I think that I have some funny stories about Vladdy. I will not say on here, but he's one of those guys, right? And he demands it, but he produces. And, to the fact of having sparkling water in his water bottle or soda in his water bottle, very particular in what he wanted. And I feel like he's grown a lot as a person, as a family man. And, I couldn't be happier for him too. And I think he's a guy that realized what he had in St. Louis, how good it was. And now getting another chance to win, I think he relishes in the moment.
How do you drink sparkling water when you're dying of thirst on the
That's
bench?
such a European thing.
Crazy. We had a guy, we picked a guy from the Leafs. I forget his name. He's a Russian. He had some concussion problems. But then he started asking for sparkling water in his thing. And we're like, man, you got to score 40 first before you start demanding what you're going to get in your. You're drinking water and Gatorade like the rest of us. Okay, bud?
Hey, I played with this guy in Anaheim, Jeff Friesen. He put like Coca-Cola in his water bottle because he thought it would, or Mountain Dew, the American Mountain Dew, because that's
I could see it. Yeah. Some guys are different, right? I was just trying to get by. That's why I laugh. And we talked about Linus a lot. He was a guy that, what you'll notice with him is he'll get 40 shots or 15 shots. Doesn't seem like he breaks a sweat. I'm like just trying to make it through warm-ups without trying to get the electrolytes in me.
Nikita Soshnikov, would that be the
guy? That is the guy. Yes, he was a good player, but he used to come in and he'd start demanding. I think he was hanging around with Vladdy too much. The Russians, sometimes they get in their little cliques, and he thought he could start demanding stuff. We're like, okay, bud.
At the World Championships, there's so many Europeans that want, they call it gas or no gas in the water, which is carbonated. It blows my mind. I had no idea. Big deal. It's a big thing for them.
Yeah, that is an interesting one.
So I have a question I looked up. I would like to know if you have any stories regarding our good friend and former Ottawa Senator Sean McEachran, who was a one-time coach of yours.
He was. Yeah. He was. He coached me at UMass Lowell. He was great. He was a guy that I think for me really was honestly brutally honest. Right. I think that was a point in my career where I was like, not sure what I was doing with hockey, right? I was in college. I made it. I still like to party probably a little too much because I came from just a Bush League, Junior A League in Canada, and I thought I could do both. And where he really explained to me what it took to be a pro and how hard you have to work. And he was a guy that still took great care of himself as well, right? He was probably fitter than I was, and I was supposed to be this Division I athlete. So I think for him, some of the conversations we had really was eye-opening for me, because I was very talented, but I didn't have that structure, routine, which, you know, a lot of these American kids had. So I think for him, he really helped me in that sense.
Nice.
Okay, so forward to the last question on Linus Ullmark, and we'll let you go. I appreciate your time. Did the Sens win this trade?
Yes, without a doubt, especially getting rid of that contract. And there obviously is the apple that's going to hang over the fact is if they can get him re-signed. And I think if they can get him re-signed, this is a home run play. And Linus Ullmark is a goalie that is hard to come by, in my opinion. He's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised could take this team to the playoffs next year, let alone make some damage in the playoffs, right? He was a guy that I thought he played well when he got that one game this year. And for me, you guys understand how hard it is to get goalies. If it's not homegrown, it's really hard to establish a great goalie via trade. And I think this is a really big trade for them. And I think this puts Ottawa Senators as a legit playoff contender now.
Huts, one more. Do you think, and Swayman, listen, Swayman was incredible, but knowing Linus the way you do you think that lights a little more of his fire? It's like, hey, I didn't get the net that much in the playoffs here. When he plays Boston and being in the same division, is that going to matter to Linus Ullmark?
Yeah, I think there's pride there. And I think the fact of the matter is it's not like Linus lost the net by any means. It's not like we're sitting here being like, oh, he had a horrible year. He had a horrible year. Now it's literally like we have to just get rid of him because we have too many seats at the table and only so much money. So for me, I think Linus has something to prove, and he's 30 years old, guys. Like 30 years old. Like he's not old.
Young.
This is young. It's goaltending, and he's a big, strong guy. He takes good care of himself. He works on his game. You know, I think there's a lot of value here.
Nice.
I appreciate it. Go cool your phone down and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, Carter.
I gotta enjoy this. I got 2 weeks of summer up here, so I gotta get it in while I can.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, go enjoy, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, there goes Carter Hutton.
We gotta get him on. We gotta get him on a monthly segment or something. This guy's a beauty.
Yes, because if you look at who he's played with and the guys around him, like he's got the Pecorine, UC Saros connection. Mike Fisher, but Ken Hitchcock, like Chicago, he's got a ton of stories to tell, and so we will bring him on.
Yeah, I could see I could see Max sitting him down to, hey, listen, kid, no more boozing, enough partying. Like let's. It's not Thunder Bay, Ontario anymore here. It's Division I hockey. Let's go.
Well, you got probably like to spark one up too, so you got to be careful when you're in the United States. Also, I'll say this from Jeremy Swayman, guys. One of the things, and people talk about, well, he was a backup goaltender, which I don't even know technically if he was. This goes back to kind of a Van Beesbrook, Richter, historically as you go along. To me, Jeremy Swayman right now, I'd probably have him in the top 5 goaltenders in the league, certainly top 10. You're not talking about somebody that's like a co-number 1. Like we're talking about one of the great young studs in the National Hockey League that probably will win a cup and probably win a Vezina Trophy. So when people bring that up, Wally, I just kind of like, okay, just look at the circumstance here. This is one hell of a goaltender, and of course they're going to do that. You drafted the guy, you brought him through your system. It was an easy choice for the Boston Bruins as to what you're going to do.
Who do you got? How much time we got left here, Wally?
It's our show. We can do what we want.
Yeah, exactly.
We can do whatever the hell we want. Who do you?
Are you going to ask what the top 5 goaltenders are?
Who's your top 5? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Well, no. You know, it's funny, Yorkie, and I tend to go over this and talk about it. It's funny how it has a Russian angle to it all the time. I'd probably go Vasilevsky. I'd probably go Shesterkin. I might even throw Sorokin in there. And I haven't even gotten to the Bob yet. I'm a big Hallebeck guy, but he's never gotten it done in the playoffs. Right. I'd have Saros in the conversation. And then I would certainly have Swayman as well. I don't know who I'm blanking on. I'm trying to think
Ullmark, one of Vezina Trophy. He's the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. How is he not in your top 5?
Oh no, he could be too as Wally. I'm a little bit wanting to see what he does in Ottawa, but he's a conversation. I think Demko's a stud in Vancouver. Oh, for sure, I'd put Ullmark in the conversation. I guess it's a nice conversation to have. If you said to me, give me a top 10, and then we can really have heavy debate. Oh, no, he's right there. Would I take Swayman over Ullmark right now? Absolutely. Does Swayman have even more upside? Absolutely. Swayman is a 2-save goaltender, and I'm not saying Ullmark can't be, but Swayman is much closer to Bob. He has the ability to go into the athletic mode that can do things, and I thought that was shown a little bit when Ullmark played in the playoffs. Not that he was bad, but he's not quite to that level of a superstar. But certainly Wally, hey, he's a true number one. And let's hope Matt Murray was just a bad goalie. I don't care about the system. I'm not sure about the Korpisalo situation. I think Ottawa should be a better team, a better organization, and a better situation to come into. So there's lots of reasons to like what Ullmark will be able to do here in Ottawa.
The goaltending position, it's just so crazy. Look at Vancouver, for instance. We all thought when Demko got hurt and they went with the third string goaltender, who, by the way, I watched him. He played with my son in Barrie Simmer. And he was a very average OHL goaltender. And we're watching the game. We're like, holy shit. Like all of a sudden, this kid improves a ton and had himself a hell of a playoff. So it's I find the goaltending conversation, it's always rotating. It's always shifting around. You have your top guy, you have your top guys who you mentioned, but I agree. You're getting Ullmark, who is a legitimate top 10 goalie in the league, somewhere in there, but it's pretty hard when you got Swayman and what he's done so far. It's two number ones. They were blessed with two number one goaltenders, and Ottawa's the beneficiary.
Yeah, and you go through it, guys. Theory and thought, Wally, when you look at it, and you have a Demko, you have a Swayman, you have a Shesterkin, a Vasilevsky, guys that are drafted, develop. Now, the development plan, I'll go back to Vasilevsky, was perfect. Had to buy time. They brought in Bishop. All of a sudden, you segue. This is really what Swayman was. And even go back to Tim Thomas with Tuukka Rask. It was the exact same thing of passing it along. And then the evolution of the goaltender, and they keep going back to the age. People have to remember, Craig Anderson was 28 years old when he reached Ottawa, ended up having a great career for himself. But I think in the National Hockey League right now, who 15 years ago or 10 years ago is going to be the goalie of the future for the Florida Panthers? Mr. Markstrom. And Mr. Markstrom had to go a lot of different places to finally get to the spot that he was at. And I say for Ullmark, when you look at the numbers, it really has not been that bad. Now you're grabbing him in his absolute prime. Had the time in Buffalo, had the time in Boston. It's very circumstantial. Ottawa's got to be a better team, but hey, they're getting a stud goaltender. There's no doubt about that.
100%.
I'm just curious of how it'll all play out with a new head coach and hopefully a new defensive structure. I think even with the guys you currently have on the blue line, there would be a vast improvement based on just strictly coaching itself.
Well,
I'm not completely sold on that personally, but
I can tell by that look.
Yeah. I just like how you've got. Yeah, we'll see, but I like the current structure of the staff. I like the fact. Yeah. I really like the fact they've got a former player in Nolan Baumgartner who's going to run the D. I think that's really important. I know you don't have to have played to coach, but I think that the most important secondary coaching position on your team is your defense coach. Yeah. I really believe that. And the relationship he has with the players, it's so much easier for your defense coach to relate with the players when it's a guy who has been there and done that. So I'm expecting good things, big things, and a big improvement just by that little switch in the defense coach.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The only thing I'm going to, Wally, when I make that funny face is I still think there's both things. First of all, implementing a program and a short training camp doesn't come overnight. So it's a work in progress to get it accomplished, Yorkie. Kind of always go back to Jacques Martin here. And again, a slow process. But from a personnel standpoint on the back end, who they get in that fourth spot as a right defenseman is kind of make or break. Quite simply right now, if you look at JBD to Brandstrom to Hamonic, although probably bought out, immersing Clevin in, and if Shabbat doesn't take the next step as far as a defensive play, I don't care what system you're playing, but that spot there, if that happens with a Tanev or somebody like that, guys, I'm fully on board, but also understanding as you come into camp that a group that has not learned how to play, and use that term, and I love it with my good friend C. Brown, played properly. Most of these Ottawa Senators players have not played properly. So it's not going to be an easy process to all of a sudden come in and say, we're going to end up doing that. Is Stützle to Brady Tkachuk to everybody, Wally Batherson. There's a lot of work to be done for the coaching staff.
Yeah. And it really does start a lot of times, and I'll say this as a former defenseman, your forwards are such a key part in how you play as a defenseman, how hard they backtrack, how tight your gap is. You watch these teams in the playoffs right now, how tight they are in the D zone. You can't get to the front of the net. It's just so hard. And that helps with personnel. When you look at all the teams that were left standing here, big, long D that are hard to play against. It's the way the NHL is going right now. So I would think, guys, that is going to get addressed. They know it. They know they have to get that right side shored up. There's some guys available. I think they make a splash at the draft. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Speaking of the draft, a lot of us didn't like the Tarasenko move, right? We said, what a terrible first trade for Steve Stais, and they gave him away. And people thought there would be a lot better return than a third round pick. Well, it turns out, and a third and a fourth, I should say, after last night, it becomes a third and a third for the Florida Panthers. So Ottawa now gaining a third round pick, which would be like possibly 32 spots, right? Moving up.
Mrs. Tarasenko already moved into Fort Lauderdale. She was waiting there for him.
Yeah,
he wasn't going any other. I think he had the kids registered in school, for God's sake, down there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they were ready to go.
It was crazy. Like there's
that trade's not so bad when you had no choice but to send them to Florida.
And was the family not already there? I thought they didn't come to Ottawa. That was also part of it. It's almost a bit of a Mike Fisher. And it was funny how everyone applauded Brian Murray for doing the right thing. Yeah, there was no choice at the time. And I won't go too deep into Tarasenko. And Carter Hutton kind of, I got some of the worst, not worse, but some bad intel on him as a guy last year. And I took a lot of flack for it. He actually played much better, but certainly in St. Louis, as he said, he was in a different spot. And he's an older player now. I'm curious from free agency standpoint. I kind of think he's rolling in the summer on another 1-year deal. He actually had a real nice year, but I don't think anybody's signing up for anything long term with Tarasenko right now.
It'll help with the cup on his resume, and that always does get you a year or two extra. But yeah, he didn't. He was pretty quiet in the final. Scored a few big goals, but not. If I'm a team, I'm not a guy that I really want to put around. Maybe, but I'm not. I'm not jumping for joy to do it.
No.
Sorry, I'm just trying to have a conversation. Usually I get to finish my typing in the chat before I have to come back to you guys with another question.
Oh yeah, what's going on in that chat?
Well, there's lots, actually. It's very good. They're a lot smarter than you two. Ryan just said, Ryan just said, what do you think will happen with the first round pick Ottawa has to give up? Does the NHL reduce the punishment? And you guys, we had discussed this earlier. I still there is an outside chance, and the belief is by the Sens that it will get reduced. But Mr. Andlauer didn't help himself, as you said yesterday, last night, by having a little trade just before puck dropping Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, no, and again, I don't say that, Wally. And again, everyone's like, I love what they're doing. And I think there was another circumstance early in the year. Unfortunately for me, the season's a bit of a blur. All I'm saying, and again, in knowing Gary Bettman, and you have to be schmoozing him, and he'll make the decision. Yeah, little stuff like that. I mean, he must have been pissed. And I'm surprised that Jeremy Jacobs and the Boston Bruins were on board. This wasn't Wayne Gretzky being traded, but it was a big deal and had to be talked about on Hockey Night in Canada. I'd be playing nice with the commissioner. That's all I'm saying. And I do think there's a chance, and precedent is with the New Jersey Devils of the reduction of that. And the other part with this is not like the pick was awarded to anybody else. So you're not taking anything away. The pick was basically deleted from or will be deleted from the Ottawa Senators. It'd be pretty easy to turn around under the circumstance of new owner, new group, what's going on here, to reduce that to a second or third Yorkie.
But at the time, you didn't have a new group. You had the same general manager in place.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. I understand that.
It would. But do you think Gary would go back and say, I changed my mind now? It doesn't seem like but
I think 2 years out, guys, nobody in the hockey world outside of Ottawa would really care. That's all. Now, other general managers, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they say, listen, you have to have the 32nd pick, or I don't know how it does, how they do it. That would be the only opposition. I don't think anybody in the hockey world I think a lot of people thought, man, this is always a relation to for everything that went on in Chicago. Are you kidding me? That all of a sudden, because I do think it's all related. Exactly. It is your organization to all of a sudden be a first round pick for the daddy situation was that was awfully strong.
Crazy.
Speaking of crazy, we were way late today. We're 8 minutes after our usual end time, so I don't want Yorkie to bill me for the overtime. And we're back tomorrow, by the way. Our 5-day extravaganza begins at 9 a.m. on day 3, and then Thursday will be 9 a.m. and Friday we haven't said anything about this, but we're doing a live draft show beginning at 7 p.m. We will follow at least up until the Sens make their pick at 7.
Yeah.
We encourage you to come along. In fact, I'll look to try and find some free stuff to give away.
Absolutely. Hey,
Well,
maybe Simmer's wig. Maybe we can.
Well,
give that away.
exactly, or even just items from your home, Wally. Anything that's in the background. Let's start it off with the bidding. Like those Tony Harris paintings from behind Yorkie. Like what kind of
priceless.
What kind of a draw
No.
would that be? Starting right off, right?
Yorkie. Which one do you want to give away first?
Maybe some golf stuff. We got some golf stuff we might give away, Wally. Hint, hint. See what we can.
Somebody wants my toaster.
Yeah, good time of year. Yeah. Oh, that's true. That would be good. Yeah.
I still have to give you a picture of the special toaster.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right,
boys. See you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah. Enjoy the beauty day. Cheers, boys. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to Coming In Hot. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.